I'm Mark Fiske, and you're listening to Clear the Air. Public schools and school boards can, and often do, fall into patterns of nepotism and deceitfulness that don't really befit most people's vision of what a public school should be or how it should be run. It seems easy. Just be fair to everybody, follow the rules that you've written, and make sure you're consistent. But as a matter of fact, one year there was a physical altercation between two of my students. The consequence of that was clearly described in my handbook, and the handbook was signed off on by everyone and their guardians months prior. And the consequence was to be disqualified from a free incentive trip. Now, this student had a parent who worked for the school, and I was told I didn't want to die on that hill, and that the student would be allowed to go on the trip. I decided not to take that trip because an incentive trip that was going to reward a student for committing an assault on another student no longer carries the same intent as far as I'm concerned. Through my public records request, the name of one parent occurs over 200 times in messages to principals, superintendents, and board members. At no point in time was I ever approached by either a principal or a superintendent to either verify or clarify this person's assertions. But at no point in time was this person discouraged by any of the recipients from violating the chain of command or encouraged to try to resolve concerns with me, which is probably why her name appears that many times. A principal once told me we want to make sure we keep the good families, in the context of another minor consequence for a student not having a pencil. When I asked if the household threatened to leave the district over the pencil, at whose responsibility it was to identify quote-unquote good families and whether it was wise to discriminate by favoring good families, things got heated. In spite of assurances made, our summer evening rehearsal times were repeatedly violated with conflicts, and this was permitted by the individual who made the assurance in the first place that they would not be. There was a 4-year period at one point in time where it seemed like cooler heads had prevailed or that some clarity or maturity had finally stepped in, but that turned out to correlate with a time that a prominent family had a child involved in the bands who was really enjoying it. So this is still nepotism, but it's just the reverse flavor, with the caveat that the family wasn't a direct participant or holding any expectations that they'd be treated differently. So remember, I told my students for decades that someone's last name didn't do anything to make them any more valuable than someone without it, and that what they learned to do or offered to do for others was what made someone valuable. This kind of environment should be easy for public schools and school boards to foster. They all have policies and handbooks designed to make sure the fair treatment that everyone expects occurs, but when you have a school board president who picks and chooses which board policies to follow, it starts to become very clear why the environment doesn't exist like it should. And it's because when you get right down to it, the people who could make it that way just don't seem to want to.